You do not feel lost because you are weak. You feel lost because you were not born to dissolve into the crowd. From a very young age, something inside you already knew a truth that had no language yet. You looked at this world, lived in it, did what people called normal. But deep inside, there was always a soft knock on your soul, reminding you that life is not only about eating, sleeping, working, then growing old. You tried to ignore that feeling. You told yourself that everyone feels different at some stage. But for you, that feeling did not fade with time. It grew with you. It followed you into crowded rooms where you still felt alone. It stayed with you in conversations that seemed familiar but felt strangely empty. You smiled, you nodded, you blended in, but inside, a part of you always stepped back and watched, as if your soul was waiting for a signal the world was not yet ready to send. You were never taught how to name this. Society teaches you how to adapt, not how to listen to your soul. And so, very early on, you learned to doubt yourself. You wondered if you were too sensitive, too thoughtful, too different. You tried to become more agreeable, more quiet, more like everyone else. But the more you tried to blend in, the more it felt like you were betraying something deep within you. There were nights when you lay still in the dark, not sad, not happy, just filled with a vague sense of emptiness, not because your life was terrible, but because it was not right. You did not know what right was, but not right was painfully clear. You felt other people's bitterness more easily than your own joy. You were moved by injustices others called normal. You could hear the exhaustion behind someone's laughter. And sometimes you wondered why you carried these things in your heart when no one asked you to. The truth is, you do not carry them out of duty. You carry them because you were made to feel. Some souls are born to exist, and some souls are born to awaken. Not everyone needs to understand this, but you have felt it for a long time, even when you never said it out loud. You are different not because you are better, but because you were designed for a different role. It is not by chance that you always feel like you are remembering something that was forgotten. It is not by chance that the familiar paths of this world never feel enough for you. You were created with a depth that simple answers cannot fill. And perhaps, in a very quiet moment, you once heard a sentence rise within you, without knowing where it came from. I thank you, because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139:14 is not a sentence meant to make you proud. It is a reminder that your difference is not a mistake in creation. You were not born by accident. You were placed in this world with an inner structure that does not allow you to live on the surface. You see too clearly what others pass by. You feel too deeply what others brush away. And because of that, your path has never been easy. From the beginning, you had to learn how to live with being misunderstood, not because you cannot speak, but because what you feel does not easily translate into ordinary language. There are moments when you wish you were a little more like others, a little more carefree, a little less thoughtful. But if you truly were like them, you would not be here. You would not be hearing these words. You would not feel that haunting familiarity when someone speaks of a calling. You did not search for this, but it found you. And that often happens to souls that are marked very early. You grew up in a world that taught you to prove your worth through achievement, through the approval of the majority. But your soul does not operate by those rules. It does not care about applause. It cares about living in truth. And this misalignment is why you often feel like you are walking against the current, even when you are not trying to. You may have wondered why you have to carry such heavy emotions, while others seem to live more lightly. But you were not created just to live lightly. You were created to bring light into heavy places. Before you can do that for the world, you must learn to carry it within yourself. And that journey is rarely gentle. If you are listening to this and feel your heart sink, not from sadness, but from being named. Understand that you are not hearing a distant story. You are being reminded of yourself, not to separate you from others, but to help you understand why you have always felt like you stand at the edge. Not to make you proud, but to help you stop blaming yourself. Some souls are born to blend in, and some souls are born to stand guard, to guard the truth, to guard the sacred memory humanity forgot while chasing artificial light. And if you have ever felt like you stand between two worlds, not fully belonging to either, it may be because you were placed there on purpose. This journey does not begin with strength. It begins with recognition, recognizing that your sense of difference is not a curse, but a sign. Recognizing that your loneliness is not because you were abandoned, but because you are being prepared. And from the moment you allow yourself to see it through new eyes, the first door has already opened, even if you have not yet stepped through. When you begin to accept that your difference is not a mistake, another layer of awareness slowly opens. You look back at your life with new eyes, and the pieces that once felt scattered begin to take shape. The lonely moments, the times you were misunderstood, the rough paths you did not choose but still had to walk, all of them are no longer meaningless events. They feel like invisible fingerprints left on your soul from very early on, as if someone already knew you would need them. You begin to realize that you were never truly meant to dissolve into this world, even when you tried to live like everyone else. A part of you always kept its distance, not out of arrogance, but because you sensed you were standing before something greater than familiar patterns. You watch people chase success, status, approval, and inside you, a quiet question rises. And then what? Not because you look down on those things, but because they are not enough to answer the deepest longing within you. In ancient civilizations, people like you were called by many different names. In some places, they were called prophets. In others, keepers of the fire. In others, guardians of the collective soul. They did not appear when everything was peaceful, but were often born in times of chaos. Not to rule, but to remind. Not to stand above others, but to stand firm when everything shook. And most importantly, they never chose that path. The path chose them. You may not call yourself by such grand names. You may even find them distant, heavy, unfamiliar. But the essence of being chosen does not lie in a title. It lies in the quiet sense that your life is tied to something beyond personal gain. You cannot remain indifferent to the pain of others, even when it exhausts you. You cannot pretend that everything is fine when deep inside you know it is not. There are times you wonder why you have to carry emotions that do not seem to belong to you, why you can feel the sadness in a room before anyone speaks, why you carry questions that no one around you seems to want to hear. Yet in those very moments, you are touching an ancient truth. Some souls are created to feel on behalf of the many, to see before others are ready to see. You were not taught that this was sacred. Instead, you may have been taught that you are too sensitive, too dreamy, too serious about everything. You learned to suppress your intuition, to stay quiet so you would not be seen as different. But intuition does not disappear when ignored. It only waits for a moment quiet enough to speak again, and when it does, you cannot help but listen. There is a sentence whispered through generations, not to separate one person from another, but to recognize those willing to listen. The Lord confides his covenant to those who fear him. Psalm 25:14 does not speak of privilege, it speaks of trust. A covenant is not given to those who seek power, but to those humble enough to carry responsibility. You were not given deep understanding because you are better, but because you are willing to bear the cost of seeing. You begin to understand that being chosen does not look as glamorous as people imagine. It does not arrive with dazzling light or applause. It comes quietly, often through detours, through turns that make you doubt yourself. You were not given an easy life, you were given a deep one, and that depth sometimes makes you feel like you are sinking before you realize you are learning how to stand firm in a strong current. You may have experienced relationships falling apart without knowing why. Places you once called home becoming unfamiliar. People who were once close no longer understanding you. That did not happen because you changed for the worse, but because you are changing to become more true. When you stop playing the role the world expects, what does not belong to you begins to fall away. There is a quiet fear you rarely name. The fear that if you go too deep on this path, you will not be able to return to your old life, and that fear is not wrong. You will not be able to return to being someone who closes their eyes to what they have seen, but you will also no longer have to strain yourself to live a life that does not fit your soul. Being chosen does not separate you from humanity. It binds you to them in a different way. You do not stand outside to judge. You stand close enough to feel. You are not called to save with grand words, but with steady presence. And to do that, you must learn how to stand alone before you can stand with others. At the deepest level, this journey is not meant to turn you into someone else, but to remove the layers that have been hiding who you truly are. You are not becoming a chosen one. You are remembering who you have always been. And as that memory becomes clearer, you will understand why, from so early on, your soul refused easy answers. The road ahead is still unclear, but you begin to sense the direction, not through a map, but through a quiet certainty. You do not need to do anything grand yet. Your task now is simply to keep listening, to stay with the truth that is slowly revealing itself. Everything else will arrive in its own time, in ways you cannot yet predict. When the truth inside you begins to awaken, the world around you no longer seems to move at the old rhythm. You still walk familiar streets, still meet familiar faces, but the feeling has changed. As if a thin veil has just been pulled aside, revealing a reality you once only sensed faintly. You begin to see more clearly the fatigue in people's eyes, to see the endless races few ever stop to question where they are going. You do not become cold toward the world. On the contrary, you feel connected to it in a deeper way. But it is that very connection that brings pain. You see fear hidden behind ambition. You see emptiness behind carefully polished smiles. And sometimes you wonder why you see these things so clearly, while others seem not to care at all. The answer is not that you are smarter, but that you cannot turn away from the truth, even when that truth weighs heavily on your heart. At this stage, many people like you have tried to return to their old rhythm of life. They try to convince themselves they are overthinking, that it is better to live simply like everyone else. But the more they force themselves into familiar molds, the more restless they become. Your soul was not designed to fall back asleep once it has awakened. Once you have seen, you cannot pretend you never did. You begin to realize that the challenges in your life did not arrive by chance. They appeared at the right time, at the right weakness, at the exact place that forced you to face yourself. The failures, the broken relationships, the periods that felt directionless, all of them are pushing you toward the same question. Who are you when there is no role left to cling to? And it is there, in that space without labels, without titles, that you begin to touch your true self. There is something important you slowly come to understand. Being chosen is not a promise of an easier life, but an invitation into a more honest one. You are not promised that everything will be fine, but you are promised that everything will have meaning. And sometimes that meaning only reveals itself after you have walked long enough through the dark. You may have heard people say that this world is in crisis, but for you, it is not just a social observation. You feel it in the air, in fragmented conversations, in the widespread sense of disorientation. There is a fracture taking place, not only outside but inside human beings. And in times like these, souls like yours often feel stretched more than ever, as if an invisible force is urging you to fully awaken. A sentence echoes in your mind, not loudly, but clearly. They know not, neither do they understand. They walk on in darkness. Psalm 82:5 does not feel like an accusation, but like an explanation. Not everyone is ready to see. Not everyone wants to wake up. And your task is not to shake everyone awake, but to keep the light from going out, while the darkness remains thick. Here, you begin to understand something subtle. You do not need to prove who you are to anyone. This path does not demand recognition from the crowd. It demands absolute honesty with yourself. And that honesty can be lonely. There are moments you wish someone could speak for you, confirm that you are not crazy, that you are not imagining everything. But then you realize if someone did that for you, this journey would no longer be yours. If you are still here, still listening, it is likely because something in you resonates in a way that is hard to explain. You do not need to believe all of this right away. It is enough that some part of you feels familiar, as if you are hearing a story your soul already knew. And if you want, you can leave a very small trace, a line of sharing, a quiet presence, to say that you are here, that you are listening, not for anyone else, but for yourself. Some people pass by these words and forget them immediately, but others pause because they realize they cannot ignore them. The difference is not intelligence or belief, but readiness. Readiness to face questions larger than the self. Readiness to step out of the collective sleep, even without knowing where the path leads. You are not called to be a hero in the eyes of the world. You are called to be awake among those who are asleep. And sometimes that simply means you stop lying to yourself. You stop denying your intuition. You stop dimming your light to fit into someone else's darkness. At this stage of the journey, you do not need to take any grand action. The most important thing is that you remain with the truth opening inside you. You allow yourself to learn, to listen, and to connect with voices that help illuminate your path, rather than lull you back to sleep. Not because you need someone to lead you, but because even those who walked before once needed light from others to avoid losing their way. You are standing at an invisible threshold. You have not fully crossed it, but you are no longer standing still as before. And this in-between moment, fragile as it may be, is where many things begin to change. You may not see the whole path yet, but you can feel the direction. And that, for a soul called to awaken, is already the beginning of all transformation. When you continue to walk with your eyes now open, the world begins to reveal another face. Not because it has changed, but because you have stopped seeing it through old patterns. You see more clearly the cracks running through human life, from family, work, to the way people treat one another. What was once called stable now reveals itself as fragile. Promises once believed to be solid now feel hollow. And within that breaking apart, you do not only see chaos, you see a quiet warning. You begin to understand that this world is not only facing external problems, but is in crisis from within. Humanity has built too many things while forgetting the foundation. People learned how to operate systems, but forgot how to listen to the soul. They learned how to achieve, but forgot how to become. And this disconnection has created a nameless hunger, an emptiness that no achievement can fill. You do not see this with judgment. You see it with the sadness of someone who knows things cannot continue the same way. There are moments you wish you did not see so clearly, because seeing also means you can no longer look away. You feel the exhaustion accumulating in the collective, like a long sigh stretching across generations. And in that moment, you begin to understand why you were placed in this time of history. You did not come here to fix every broken piece with bare hands. You came here to hold a different frequency. When everything around you vibrates with fear, anger, and division, your presence carries a different rhythm, slower, deeper, more real. You do not need to say much. As long as you do not lose yourself in the chaos, you are already doing what many cannot. There is a hard truth to accept. Light is not always welcomed. When you begin to live in alignment with your intuition, with your inner values, resistance appears. Not always as open confrontation. Sometimes it is distance. Sometimes it is mockery. Sometimes it is a long silence from those who were once close. You may wonder if you did something wrong, but the truth is, you are simply doing what you were born to do, and that unsettles what others are trying to cling to. You slowly understand that your role is not to convince everyone. Not everyone is ready to listen, and not everyone needs you at this time. Some seeds only sprout when the soil is soft enough. Your task is not to break the ground by force, but to keep holding the light so that when the time comes, the seed will know where to grow. At this stage, you may feel a different kind of loneliness. No longer the same as before. It is no longer the feeling of being abandoned, but the feeling of standing between two worlds. You no longer fully belong to the old way of living, yet you cannot clearly see the shape of what is coming. You walk through an in-between space, where what is familiar is dissolving, and what is next has not yet appeared. This is where many turn back, but you do not. Not because you are braver, but because your soul no longer allows you to pretend. You begin to learn an important lesson. Steadiness does not mean rigidity. You do not need to close yourself off to protect who you are. You learn how to be still on the inside, even when strong winds blow outside. You learn how to distinguish between the noise of the world and the true calling. And each time you choose not to react from old habits, another part of you is set free. The world may continue to move fast, but you are no longer pulled along. You see clearly that being busy is no longer a measure of meaning. You no longer measure your worth by how much you produce, but by what you are able to preserve. Preserving awareness, preserving compassion, preserving honesty, even when no one is watching. Deep within, you begin to sense that you are no longer living only for yourself. Your small choices, the way you face difficulty, the way you do not let fear rule you, all create invisible ripples. You may not see where they travel, but that does not make them any less real. Some changes do not need to be witnessed to have value. And here, something becomes clearer. You were not called to escape this world in crisis. You were called to remain within it, without belonging to what is decaying. You were called to become a point of stability for a new order, even if that order has no name yet. This path does not promise comfort, but it offers a steadiness you have never known before. You begin to trust that no matter how much the world around you shifts, something within you is being placed where it belongs. And when that happens, you no longer panic at collapse. You see it as part of a birthing process, where pain is not a sign of the end, but a sign that something new is preparing to come into being. There comes a moment when you realize that what is unfolding inside you can no longer be hidden. Not because you want to expose it, but because the masks that once helped you survive have become too tight. You have worn them long enough to know they are not you. And when they begin to crack, the first feeling is not freedom, but fear. Fear because you no longer know who you are without the familiar roles to cling to. This is when the journey moves into its deepest territory. No longer broad questions about life, but questions aimed directly at your being. You look back at what you once believed, once pursued, once sacrificed, and you ask whether they truly came from your soul or were simply adaptations to be accepted. These questions do not arrive with immediate answers. They arrive like fractures, shaking old foundations, forcing you to stop. Many people call this stage a crisis, but for you, it feels like an unavoidable purification. What no longer fits begins to fall away, whether you are ready or not. It may be a relationship you once believed would last forever. It may be a job that once gave you a sense of safety. It may be an image of yourself that you built over many years. When they leave, you do not only lose them, you also lose your sense of certainty. You begin to move through days where your mind has no familiar ground to stand on. What once gave meaning now feels empty. Plans that once reassured you no longer attract you. You may feel as if you are falling, unsure where you will land. And in that emptiness, a very different kind of loneliness appears. Not loneliness from having no one beside you, but from having no familiar anchor left to lean on. It is right here that you touch a truth you once only heard in passing. Transformation is never gentle. It does not come to comfort, but to restructure. You are not being broken because you are weak. You are being broken because old structures can no longer hold the person you are becoming. And even if no one says it aloud, your soul understands very clearly that this process cannot take shortcuts. A sentence echoes in the depth of that exhaustion, not as comfort, but as confirmation. For God has tested us, refined us like silver. Psalm 66:10 does not promise that the fire will be cool. It only says the fire has purpose. And when you look at what you are going through in that light, the pain does not disappear, but it no longer feels meaningless. You begin to see that old wounds you once tried to forget did not disappear by being avoided. They were simply waiting for the right moment to be faced. Buried memories, unnamed emotions, fears you never allowed yourself to admit, all rise like broken shards of glass. Each piece reflects a part of you, imperfect, not beautiful, but real. And for the first time, you no longer want to run from them. There are days when you feel as if you are moving backward, as though all previous efforts have dissolved. But in truth, you are moving inward to a place where familiar measurements no longer apply. Here, there is no progress to display, no achievements to count. There is only raw honesty between you and yourself. And that honesty requires more courage than any outward action. You may have once thought you needed to become stronger to pass through this stage, but slowly you realize that what is asked of you is not strength in the way you once understood it. What is asked is surrender, releasing old stories about who you must be, releasing expectations that no longer fit, releasing even the need to understand everything right away. There is a paradox you begin to live with. The less you try to control, the more supported you feel. Not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because you stop resisting the current that is carrying you where you need to go. You learn to stay with uncomfortable feelings without rushing to label them or escape. You learn to listen to your exhaustion as a message, not as an enemy. In this quiet, a new kind of understanding forms. Not understanding meant to explain things to others, but understanding deep enough that you no longer betray yourself. You see more clearly which voice belongs to fear and which belongs to the soul. You no longer confuse pleasing the world with living in alignment with inner truth. You may not yet be able to name what you are becoming, but you know very clearly what you are no longer. And sometimes, that alone is already a great step forward. You no longer try to return to an old version just to feel safe. You accept uncertainty as part of the rebirth process. No one applauds you in this stage. There are no lights, no recognition, but a change is taking place that is deep and real. You are being refined, not to become perfect, but to become more transparent to the light you carry. And even if you cannot yet see how you will use that light, you begin to trust that it did not appear without reason. When you remain in this stage long enough, you will realize that you were never abandoned in the dark. You are being held within a process that only willing souls are allowed to walk through. Not everyone can endure having what is familiar stripped away. But you are here, still breathing, still listening, still moving forward. And that speaks more than any title ever could. After the old layers fall away, you step into a very different kind of stillness. There is no longer the intense chaos from before, but there is not yet complete peace either. It feels like standing in a room that has just been emptied, where everything familiar has left, and what is new has not yet arrived. In that space, you begin to hear your inner voice more clearly. No longer drowned out by the fear of returning to who you were, you begin to sense a subtle guidance, slow but steady. You realize that for a long time, you were living through old reflexes, the reflex to please, the reflex to prove your worth, the reflex to control in order to feel safe. But now, those reflexes no longer run smoothly. Each time you try to return to the old path, something inside you resists clearly, not rebellion, but a quiet refusal. Your soul no longer allows you to live against it. It is in this stage that you begin to understand that awakening is not only recognizing truth, but learning how to live with that truth every day. Not in grand moments, but in very small choices. You begin to notice things you once ignored. How a decision makes your chest feel heavy or light. How a sentence lands in your body as aligned or out of rhythm. You no longer need anyone to confirm what is right for you. Your body and your soul have become the measure. A symbol begins to appear in your inner life, not as superstition, but as an imprint. The number 707, it does not come to impress, but to remind. 707 is alignment between mind, soul, and action. When you think one thing, feel one thing, and do one thing without contradiction, you are stepping into that state. Not perfect, but true, not loud, but steady. You may have noticed this number in very ordinary moments. On a clock, on a road, in a moment when you were not searching. Yet each time something inside you softens, as if someone gently tapped and said, you are on the right path. 707 does not promise success as the world defines it. It confirms that you are living in rhythm with what you are called to become. If you are listening now and feel that number strangely familiar, let it stay with you. And if you are willing, you may share the number you feel most connected to, not to prove anything, but to acknowledge an invisible meeting between you and this journey. Not everyone sees it, but those who do understand. At the same time, you begin to learn a subtle lesson about intuition. Before, you doubted it, pushed it aside because it lacked logic. Now you see clearly that the moments you ignored your intuition were the moments that cost you the most. Not through punishment, but through prolonged exhaustion. When you listen to it, even when the path is unclear, a lightness appears. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you are no longer resisting yourself. You begin to understand that intuition does not shout, it whispers. And to hear it, you must slow down. You must learn to stay with uncertainty without rushing to fill it with action. This is not easy, especially in a world that glorifies speed and results. But you are no longer measured by those standards. Your path is measured by how much honesty you maintain with the light within. There are moments when you feel like you are walking without a map, but instead of panicking, you begin to trust that you are being guided step by step, not toward a fixed destination, but toward a way of living, a way where you no longer strain to become someone, a way where you do not have to cut away parts of your soul to fit into the world. In this state, you realize something important. You do not need to rush to save anyone. You are not called to fix the world by your own strength. You are called to live in a way that your presence becomes an invitation. When you live in alignment, you become a reference point. Not everyone will look your way, but those who are ready will recognize that light immediately. You also begin to learn how to protect your energy, no longer leaving every door open to every demand, every emotion, every pain of others, not because you have become indifferent, but because you understand that if you are depleted, you cannot hold light for long. You learn to say no without guilt. You learn to step back without feeling like you are running away. That is not selfishness, that is wisdom. At a deeper level, you sense that you are being prepared for something not yet revealed, not through specific instructions, but through inner restructuring. Old reactions are slowly replaced by presence. Fears that once controlled you gradually lose their power. You no longer need to know the entire path ahead. You only need to know that you are not walking alone, even when no one is visible beside you. The world around you may still be loud, still chaotic, still full of invitations to return to the old rhythm. But inside you, a new order is forming. Not an order of control, but an order of trust. You trust what you are living, even when you cannot yet explain it to anyone else. And that trust begins to spread into every area of your life. You no longer ask who you must become. You begin to ask how honest you must be in order not to lose your soul. And each time you choose that honesty, even in small ways, you are carving this journey deeper into yourself. No one gives it to you. You live it into being. The road ahead is still not fully visible, but you no longer need it to be. You have enough light for the next step, and for a soul called to awaken, that is enough. When you begin to slow down to hear your intuition, a subtle yet profound shift takes place. You no longer react to everything the way you once did. Situations that used to send you into panic now pass through like a gentle breeze. Not because you have become cold, but because you have learned to stand at a different distance from the world. Close enough to feel, yet far enough not to be pulled under. You begin to realize that not every door needs to be opened. Not every call needs to be answered. Before, you believed that helping meant always being present. Now you understand that sometimes the greatest help is not intervening, not stepping in with fear, not inserting yourself through the ego. You learn to tell the difference between a true call from the soul and a pull back into old cycles. This discernment does not come from logic. It comes from a very clear sensation in your body. Some choices feel heavy even before you act. Some paths, though their outcomes are unclear, bring a strange sense of calm. You begin to trust that feeling more than any advice, because you have paid a high price for ignoring it. One thing becomes increasingly obvious. You no longer need to explain yourself to everyone. Before, you tried to make others understand why you chose differently, why you did not chase what seemed obvious. But the more you explained, the more exhausted you became. Not because you were wrong, but because not everyone shares the same level of awareness to hear. And you begin to respect that, not through withdrawal, but through timely silence. Within that silence, you sense a steady guidance, not clear commands, but steps placed at exactly the right moment. You look back and see times when you thought you were lost, yet you were actually spared from a turn that was not meant for you. Doors that once slammed shut and caused pain later reveal themselves as protection. A sentence rises within you, not as a promise, but as a gentle confirmation. The steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord. Psalm 37:23 does not say the road will be smooth. It simply says that every step is supported, even when you cannot see any hand. And as you begin to live with that trust, the fear of losing direction slowly fades. You realize that intuition is not something mystical reserved for a few. It is a natural ability, but in you, it has been awakened more strongly because you need it for your journey. When you cannot rely on established paths, you must learn to listen to the inner compass. And that compass not only shows you where to go, but also when to stop. There are times when intuition leads you against common logic. You may feel called to leave a place that seems fine, or stay in a place others urge you to abandon. These decisions are not always easy to explain, but when you follow them, you feel yourself standing more upright in your own life. No longer bowing to the fear of missing out, no longer chasing a false sense of safety. You also begin to see clearly that living in alignment with intuition does not separate you from people. On the contrary, it allows you to be more fully present with them. You no longer listen just to respond. You listen to understand. And when you speak, your words carry a different weight, not because they are polished, but because they come from a very real place. Some people may not remember exactly what you said, but they remember clearly how they felt near you. You no longer seek absolute certainty. You understand that such certainty does not exist on this path. The only thing you have and the only thing you need is loyalty to the light within you. Each time you choose not to betray your intuition, you take another step into wholeness. Not wholeness without wounds, but wholeness without denial of any part of yourself. You also learn that intuition needs to be nourished. It weakens when you live too fast, when you fill every empty space with noise. It grows stronger when you allow yourself to be still, when you are not afraid to be alone with your own thoughts. You begin to cherish moments when nothing happens, because it is often in those moments that guidance arrives most clearly. The world around you may not have changed much. Old structures still remain. People around you continue to chase what is familiar. But you know that something important has shifted. You no longer find your way through the eyes of others. You are walking through an understanding that comes from deep within, quiet, steady, and sure. And when you stand that way, you become an invisible anchor. Not everyone notices, but those who are searching will feel it. They do not come to you because you have answers to everything, but because near you, they feel permitted to be honest with themselves. And sometimes, that alone is already healing. You do not need to rush. This path does not reward haste. It opens little by little at a pace your soul can carry. Your task is simply to keep listening, keep trusting, and keep walking. Even if each step is very small, the light you carry does not need to shine far. It only needs to be true enough not to go out within you. When you stand more firmly in your intuition, something that seems contradictory begins to happen. The familiar loneliness starts to change its shape. It does not disappear completely, but it is no longer a cold emptiness like before. Instead, you begin to sense invisible threads connecting you to souls you have never met, yet somehow feel deeply familiar. Not everyone walks this path with you, but you start to realize that you are not the only one walking this way. You may notice this through very ordinary encounters, a short conversation that touches something deep, a look of understanding without long explanations, a strange sense of safety near someone you barely know in everyday terms. These connections are not loud or dramatic. They are like quiet anchors, reminding you that this journey carries resonance, even though each person must walk their own part alone. Before, you may have believed that standing for truth meant standing alone, but gradually, you begin to understand something more subtle. You are not called to separate yourself from people. You are called to connect in a different way, not through social roles or shared benefits, but through authenticity. And that authenticity naturally draws in souls who are searching for the same frequency. At this stage, you begin to feel the strength of community more clearly, even if that community is very small. Not a noisy crowd, but a few people who are deep enough. They do not need to be just like you in every way. But when you are near them, you do not need to explain why you think differently, feel differently, live differently. Their presence does not drain your energy. It helps you return to yourself more clearly. There is a sentence written long ago that suddenly comes alive when you reach this level of experience. How good and pleasant it is when brothers live together in unity. Psalm 133:1 does not speak of sameness. It speaks of harmony. Not harmony that erases differences, but harmony that allows each person to stand fully in their own light, without competition or comparison. You begin to understand that true community is not a place where you are indulged, but a place where you are illuminated. The right companions do not only support you, they also reflect back the places you are still avoiding, not through judgment, but through a presence honest enough that you cannot keep deceiving yourself. And you realize that spiritual growth does not happen in complete isolation, nor does it happen in an unconscious crowd. It happens at the intersection of personal awakening and conscious connection. You also learn that not every relationship needs to be carried forward. Some connections were deeply important in one phase, but no longer align with who you are becoming. Before, you may have tried to hold on out of fear of loss, fear of being misunderstood. Now you learn to let things go, without turning it into a tragedy. You understand that some relationships have completed their purpose. Letting go does not deny the value of the past. It simply honors the truth of the present. In new connections, you no longer seek salvation from others. You do not place the weight on them to understand you, heal you, or complete you. You come to them as someone who stands firmly within themselves. And that creates a very different kind of meeting. No one has to strain to prove their worth. No one has to hide their unfinished parts. You also begin to see that your presence, when placed in the right space, naturally becomes a source of comfort for others. Not because you have advice or solutions, but because you are not afraid to stay with the truth. When others share their pain, you do not rush to fix it. You listen without panic, and in that steadiness, they feel something the world rarely gives them: permission to be themselves without being pushed to be okay right away. You no longer need to search for a tribe in a formal sense. You do not need to attach yourself to any spiritual label to feel that you belong. You learn to recognize community by feeling, not by identity. The people meant for you will not require you to shrink or exaggerate yourself. They will recognize you by the light you carry, not by what you try to display. At a deeper level, you begin to understand that community is not only about those physically present in your life. It is also the sense of being supported by something larger than the personal self. A current where, when you walk in rhythm, you no longer feel isolated in your effort to live awake. You no longer feel like you are bracing yourself against the world. You are moving within a larger process, even if you can only see a very short stretch ahead. You may still not know exactly how your role will take shape, but you begin to trust that you do not need to define it too soon. The right connections will arrive at the right time. The people meant to meet you will find you, not because you call them, but because you are standing where you belong. And when that happens, you will realize that you were never lost. You were being guided to the crossings necessary for the journey ahead. You no longer ask whether you are enough. You begin to ask whether you are fully present. And within that presence, you become part of something that is quietly growing, subtle but real. A network of awakened souls, not needing to know one another fully, but holding the same frequency. And that frequency is preparing for a shift that you are about to feel more clearly. When connection begins to expand, not only between you and a few specific people, but between you and something greater, you clearly sense that this journey does not stop at personal healing. A quiet movement is taking place, not loud but persistent, like an underground current beneath the surface of the world. You no longer look at the changes around you with the same confusion as before. You begin to see them with deeper understanding, that what is collapsing is not a disaster, but a sign that a cycle has reached its end. You see more clearly the exhaustion of old systems, ways of operating based on fear, Control and division can no longer hold their shape as they once did. They shake, crack, sometimes resist fiercely, but instead of being pulled into collective anxiety, you stand in a different place. You are not indifferent, but you are not panicked. You sense that beneath the chaos is a collective invitation, calling humanity to step into a new level of consciousness, even though the transition is far from comfortable. Here you begin to understand your true role more clearly. You are not called to fight the old world. You are called to stop feeding it within yourself. Each time you choose not to react from fear, not to act from resentment, not to nurture division in thought and speech, you are weakening old structures. No banners, no slogans. Your awakened presence is already in action. You realize that collective awakening does not happen at the same time for everyone. Some people are still sleeping very deeply. Some have only just touched their first doubt. Some are struggling in their own night. Before, you may have felt the urge to wake them, to tell them what you see. Now you understand that no one wakes before they are ready. Light does not force, it only illuminates. A sentence echoes within you like an anchor amid great upheaval. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10 is not a call to escape, but a reminder to hold the center. When everything is shaking, what matters is not reacting the fastest, but standing firm in the deepest place within. And you begin to see that each time you hold that stillness, you are not only holding it for yourself, but for the space around you. You also realize that you are becoming a point of reference for others, without trying. Some people come to you not for advice, but simply to sit nearby. Some conversations do not need solutions, only a non-judgmental presence. You do not feel the need to save anyone. You do not place yourself above others. You are simply there, fully present, and that creates a rare sense of safety in a world that has lost its direction. You understand that leadership in this time no longer looks the way it used to. It is not power, not the loudest voice. It is the ability to hold inner truth while surrounded by noise. It is the courage to live aligned with your values, even when there is no reward. And this kind of leadership is what the world needs now, even if it does not yet have a clear name. There are moments when you still feel tired. You are still human, not a symbol, but this tiredness no longer carries a sense of meaninglessness. You know why you are here. You know why you cannot return to the way you lived before, not because you are better than anyone, but because you have seen too clearly to pretend. And that clarity, even when heavy, carries a steadiness you never had before. You begin to understand that the new world is not a place that will appear someday, somewhere else. It is being formed right now through how you live today, through how you speak, through how you face fear, through how you choose to love without losing your boundaries. Each such choice is a small brick laid into the foundation of what is being born. You do not need to see the whole picture to know you are contributing. You only need to be honest with the step you are taking now, and when you do that long enough, you will realize that you are not just passing through a personal phase. You are standing at a historical intersection where awakened souls begin to recognize one another, not to separate from humanity, but to lift humanity into a new level of understanding. You are not called to carry the whole world on your shoulders. You are called to carry the light within yourself, clear enough, true enough, so that others can see their own path when the time comes. And in the quiet of small but consistent actions, a collective awakening is being nurtured, one rhythm at a time through people like you. By this point, you no longer feel like you are searching for something, not because you have all the answers, but because you have stopped chasing the wrong ones. A quiet steadiness begins to take root within you, not loud, not needing proof. You still live in a world full of turbulence, but you are no longer swept up by it the way you once were. You stand within life, not dissolved into it. You realize that this journey was never meant to pull you away from humanity. It was always meant to bring you back to humanity, but from a different place. A place not ruled by fear, not guided by illusion, not trapped in old roles. You no longer look at people with judgment, nor with naivety. You look at them with the understanding of a soul that has walked through enough breaking to no longer demand that the world be perfect in order to love it. One thing becomes very clear. You do not need to become someone else to fulfill your role. You do not need to wear the image of a savior. You do not need to stand at the center. You do not need to be named. Your role is not about being seen, but about not letting the light within you go out in a world accustomed to living in darkness. And that alone, though quiet, carries more weight than you once imagined. You begin to understand that saving the world was never a dramatic act. It happens in very ordinary moments. When you choose not to react with hatred, when you choose not to repeat a harmful pattern, when you dare to speak truth without causing harm, when you hold boundaries without closing your heart. Each time, you break an old chain and open a new possibility, not only for yourself, but for those around you. You also understand that there will be days when you feel tired, doubtful, even wanting to retreat. That does not make you a failure. It simply reminds you that you are human. The difference now is that you no longer confuse exhaustion with being lost. You allow yourself to rest without giving up. You allow yourself to be quiet without disappearing. You no longer believe you must always be strong to be worthy of this journey. At a deeper level, you begin to experience true surrender, not resignation, but trust. You no longer try to force everything to follow your plans. You understand that a greater intelligence is at work, and your task is not to control the whole man, but to live in a way that does not block its flow. When you live in alignment, the right people arrive at the right time. When you slow down, what you need reveals itself. You are no longer afraid of moving slower than others. You understand that every soul has its own rhythm. Your rhythm is not made for haste. It is made for endurance. You are not called to burn brightly and fade. You are called to keep the flame alive through collective winters, through seasons when faith becomes scarce. You also begin to see clearly that the new world does not need perfect people. It needs honest ones. People who dare to face their own darkness so they do not unconsciously spread it. People who dare to heal so they do not pass wounds forward. People who dare to live slowly, deeply, consciously in a world that is used to running from itself. And you, with everything you have lived through, are standing in exactly the right place to do that. You no longer ask whether you are chosen. That question no longer matters. What matters is that you chose to live awake. You chose not to fall asleep in old stories. You chose loyalty to the light within, even when it did not bring immediate safety. And that choice, repeated day after day, has shaped your path more clearly than any title ever could. If you look back from this place, you will see that your journey was never random. Every turn, every loss, every quiet pause contributed to bringing you here, not to place you above others, but to help you stand more firmly within yourself, not to separate you from the world, but to allow you to be present in it with a different quality. And perhaps this is the simplest and deepest truth you carry. The world does not need you to become something great. The world needs you to be yourself, uncompressed, unshrunk, unhidden. When you live that way, you become a living reminder that another way of living is possible. And for a humanity searching for direction, sometimes that alone is enough to begin change. This journey does not end here. It continues in small choices, in very ordinary days. But from this moment on, you no longer walk unconsciously. You know where you are, you know what you are doing, and you know why. Even while the world remains chaotic, You choose to stay, choose to love, choose to remain awake. That is not sacrifice. It is a deep agreement between you and what you were born to become.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.